Hello.
Hello.
How's it go? Oh, God. Grant's doing chills.
Number 11. This is our 100 and possibly 80 something
Oh, my
episode.
God. I haven't even been keeping track.
It's been too long. It's time for it to just
What?
we just need to propel ourselves into the thousands for some reason. I don't know.
Well, the only way to do that is to keep going.
I quit.
You know I'm right. You know I'm right. Come on.
Number 7.
Why is it? It's just going backwards in the wrong order.
Yeah, because I'm stupid.
Yeah, look up Chills if you don't know who Chills is. Chills on YouTube. Just look that
This
up.
has to be a ghost.
It's the real
Or maybe
way this guy speaks.
I made it in Adobe Acrobat and just put the video out and it's a ghost now.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's also a rapper.
Oh, God, if you could believe it, man. If you could fucking believe that.
The worst. Anyway, we are starting a call that's great up. Jake Mitch is not here. He's getting a tin for some dip we're making.
Yeah, that's true. We're making some
gonna,
dip after this.
Yeah, we're going to be playing some poker.
Making some buffalo chicken dip, all right? And I got all the proper ingredients, but I forgot the dish to cook it
You
in.
forgot the vessel.
And I know what you're thinking. You're like, Grant, why don't you guys put it in the crock pot? Well, the simple truth is this. Crock pot's going to take too long. It's just not going to fly.
We didn't plan that far ahead, all right? We were out doing errands.
We didn't start making this shit at fucking 10 a.m.,
Yeah,
you know?
we got a lot of irons in the fire. We can't be messed with just a bunch of time that we need.
And we had to leave the house, so it's like leaving a crock pot on with a dog in the house is just a bad combo.
Who's going to turn off the crock pot if there's a fire? Navi with his paws?
It's not going to work.
No.
So we're doing it in the oven, but we'll report back to you next week and let you know how that one goes.
Yeah.
But we are here for the new installation of the JFK series, all right?
It's true. It's true.
And it has officially been decided. And I'm going to give you a little bit of lowdown what's going on, okay? So last week we covered what the official reports and findings were. Your everyday shit that you would probably learn in a U.S. history class.
It's on a lot of pieces of paper, this stuff.
Today, we are going to be doing a lot more of the conspiracy side and a little bit more of the digging. But the conspiracies today, we're doing this in what YouTube likes to call the iceberg method, you know?
Isn't that like a psychological thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right.
But we're starting at the very tip, which would be, whatever. Now we're at the middle level, and today we're going to be going over some of the more obvious theories, some of the more talked about theories, and then next week we're going to wrap up this series in our final third installation.
It's true. It's true.
That will be the very, very, very intricate, detailed theories that people don't often hear about because they just don't have the publicity.
Some of them are just batshit crazy as well.
Yeah, some of them are a little out there. But today we might get into some of the weirder ones, but it'll be this one's going to be what I call the more accepted conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
You know?
But we're not going to get into the conspiracy side until we talk about the guy who started the whole train that we're on. We're all just soaring through a mountain in a tunnel.
Pretty
on
much.
A conspiracy train because of one guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald.
JFK?
No, he killed the Lee man who killed JFK.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of layers of murder in this story.
We're talking about Mr. Rubes.
Mr. Rubes, Mr. Jack Ruby, the man who shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh.
All right, he was born Jacob Leon Rubenstein, which is extremely Jewish name. It's my name, Jacob. And then Reuben, the delicious sandwich. Anyway, on April 25th of 1911, he was born then. He grew up in a poor Jewish family with 6 other siblings, an alcoholic father, and a schizophrenic mother.
Oh, man.
Excellent priming for his future. He didn't do well in school,
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do well in school. He failed the 3rd grade, and he eventually gave up on school altogether in the 6th grade. But he would tell people that he made it to the 8th grade.
Makes sense. You got to tell people.
You got to appear to have some sort of credibility. But by the age of 10, he was scalping tickets for Chicago sporting events just on the street. You know, he was 10 years old, and he had an obsession with street gang lifestyle, though he was just not a part of it.
Good for him.
Couldn't get into it. Social services examined him at this time, you know, because of what his family was like, and concluded that he was an egocentric, sex and gang-obsessed young man with an incredibly short-fused temper.
Okay.
So he went into foster care.
Oh, man, that's so sad, but okay.
Rough couple first years of your life, huh? So his teenage years, they were mostly spent roaming the Chicago streets, where he acquired the nickname Sparky because of his temper. You know, it was such a short fuse. And he'd, like, beat the fuck out of most people for, like, the smallest thing that he thought was a slight. Most of them, like, had to do with him believing that he was being ostracized for being Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Very self-conscious about his Judaism, this guy. And he would kick the shit out of people. He was always carrying, like, an item to hit folks with, like a wrench, salad tongs, baguette, you name it. But after years of this being his life, you know, Rubenstein, he decided that it was time for a new life where he could, you know, make money.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know, like have a life. So, he moved to San Francisco in 1933 to start a new life of odd jobs that included paperboy, a betting tip sheet hander-outer, and even a singing waiter. Mm-hmm. So back in the 30s, you could have the man who shot the man who killed the president sing to you while you ate rice.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be fun? Oh, what else happened? He bopped around San Francisco for about 4 years, you know, when his mother was committed to a mental hospital, which, you know, brought him back home. He was like, gotta go be there for my mom. Which brought him back to Chicago, you know. He still wanted to turn like a new leaf, you know, from his younger days, so he did the responsible thing, and he got a job, and he was working for the Scrap Metal and Waste Union.
Okay.
And that just so happened to be the most mafia-associated union then, now, and like forever.
That's a tall order, too, to be the most associated.
The most. So yeah, he was working for them, but he had no idea. Like, in fact, the mafia forced him out once the business, like, was fully in their threshold. You know?
Okay.
Anyway, but this was just in time for him to decide to go into the military, where he promptly beat the absolute fuck out of a sergeant for calling him a Jew bastard.
Okay, yeah.
So this guy is just a very violent young man.
He's a pro-Semite, if you will.
He loves the Semites. So anyway, but despite this, he remained on duty in the Air Force, and he was like generally well liked by his peers, even though he like brutally assaulted a superior. So 3 years later, he moved back to Chicago, where he attempted to open a novelty shop with his brother, but this was short-lived. All right, didn't last too long. The brothers didn't really get along.
Okay.
And so they sold the business for $14,000. That's not bad for back then.
Not really,
You
no.
know?
That's not bad, actually. I would take that deal back then.
Why not? With which, Jacob Rubenstein, he moved to Dallas, Texas to help his sister manage a restaurant that she started there, right? So I'm going to go help the other side of the family going on. Not side, you know what I mean. It was in Dallas that he thought he was due for a rebrand, all right? He's like, a new city again, new me, now. And he began going by Jack Leon Ruby.
Okay.
Rather than Jacob Leon Rubenstein. And it was with this name that he began he like became a big name for local nightclub scene. You know?
Ooh.
He believed that nightclubs were his ticket to riches. But what do you know? He fucking sucked at it. He was not very good running nightclubs. He went through like 5 before he landed on the one where he like actually was working at the time that the thing we all know happened. He was very bad at finances and everything else. He was almost immediately in a grave amount of debt, and so his temper came out quite a bit in with like certain patrons. You know.
Okay.
Did you just fart?
I did.
All right. Oh, God.
There it is.
All right, moving on. He'd often stick a 38 that he'd always have on him into their guts and make them get on the ground and literally crawl out of his club.
Like regular people do.
Yeah, just if he didn't like who they were or something, or they maybe like spilled a drink or something. I don't know. But anyway, Ruby had part ownership in 6 nightclubs and was losing an insane amount of money on all of them somehow. At this time, he did the big thing we all know, at that time. He was in the modern equivalent of $135,000 in debt.
Okay.
So that's a lot of debt, which caused the occasional mental break, followed by intrusive thoughts of suicide and what have you. Needless to say, his family history and mental health issues were like rising to the surface here. He just put himself in a very stressful situation.
Seems fitting, yeah.
Seems fitting, right?
Everything's kind of coming to a head here.
Yeah. So most people that knew Ruby, they liked him, right? But also claimed that he was sort of a loser. Wouldn't that suck?
A fucking whack job.
Like the guy everyone's like super friendly with, but then you just leave and they're just like, God, that fucking guy. He'll never be anything.
Jack Ruby is a boner.
He truly was a boner. He'd do anything for attention, all right? So he didn't have like any real friends, mostly due to his severe insecurities. He'd try to make himself sound smart by using like really big words. People do that sometimes.
Yeah, disproportionately correct behavior.
This dinner is absolutely parasitic. It's like, oh.
That's wrong.
That's delightful, Jack. Thank you. He would try to use a bunch of big words. He would never use them right. So super stable and fun guy, this guy. Now, this all isn't to say Ruby was some nut with nothing to back it up. Like, he once severely beat a professional boxer for making a ruckus in his club. And another time, a man pulled a gun in his club, so he successfully took the gun from the dude, beat him half to death with it, put it back in the dude's pocket, and then threw him down the stairs of the club.
That's pretty baller.
So he was a fucking dork and a wiener, and like he sucked, but he had fucking teeth on him,
All right, that's cool.
So he was a force to be reckoned with a 6th grade education. Long story short, Jack Ruby had a reputation in Dallas as a short-tempered nut who would deliver on his threats, right? So he did love police, though. He loved those boys in blue. He would be a back the blue boy today for sure.
He'd be one of those guys that ironically wears the Punisher symbol.
Or seriously wears it. Either way is very
unironically is
troubling.
Where he'd just be like, no, this shit's badass, dude. The Punisher. No.
Yeah. One could say he was a shill for the cops.
All right.
A bootlicker, if you will. And it was because of this that any person involved in organized crime, just naturally refused to do business with the guy. Though nightclubs were like regular spots for mafia members, Ruby was more or less kept in the dark. The guy was like a fucking blabbermouth.
Okay.
And he was friends with a lot of cops. So, now leading up to the day in question, all right, the assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald, it was found that Jack Ruby had made multiple long-distance phone calls to people that all turned out to be major figures in the mafia.
Ooh.
Very strange, right? This leads many conspiracy theorists to believe that Ruby was involved with them and was orchestrating some sort of plan.
Okay.
Some sort of assassination plan. But rather, Jack Ruby was simply calling the offices of AVGA, which is the American Guild of Variety Artists.
AGVA?
Yeah, pretty much.
AGVA.
AVGA.
Oh, AVGA, sorry. Gotta call AVGA.
Yeah, basically the people that represent, nightclubs, dancers, strippers, that kind of thing. And he was calling them to complain about other clubs in his surrounding area hosting amateur nights, which was apparently against the rules. So
it's not gonna fly.
So he was telling on other club members.
So Jack Ruby, the murderer, is he's a tattletale.
He's a fucking dweeb, dude.
He's a snitch, dude.
But so the Avga was all but ran by organized crime and the Italian mob. So in him calling them, it's like, yeah, you're calling mobsters, but like he had a genuine complaint and he was in the dark, so he had no fucking clue.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, you know. Speaking on how Ruby felt about JFK, he loved that guy.
He idolized him.
He loved JFK. He like JFK had placed a lot of Jewish men in places of power, and Ruby like worshipped the dude for it.
Okay.
He was like, yes, building up my people. Needless to say, with his love for the president and unstable state of mind that was worsening and quickly becoming his norm, when the president was shot, Ruby was devastated.
Fair to say.
Like, everyone else was like, oh my God, I'm in shock. Oh, I just saw that.
He was
Can you
just
believe?
sobbing into his
and
open hands.
he was like, yeah, he was like crying and snotting everywhere and just like inconsolable.
Oh yeah, unable to even like calm down. Like, Jack, why don't you just relax?
Like
dude?
hyperventilating, and you're just like,
No.
calm down.
No.
He's like, I just, oh God, you know, he was just he fucking hated the fact that bullet did that to his head. But so he was also on a German drug at the time to suppress
Called
appetite.
ecstasy.
It was to suppress, like appetite. Ecstasy's close, but it was called Preludin. And it turned out to basically to have been meth.
Prelude
It was
may
German
include
prescribed
suicidal
meth.
thoughts, explosive diarrhea, unwanted boners, homicidal thoughts, and possibly even diabetes.
And launching the world into a world of conspiracy.
Call your doctor today if you would like to have these side effects and no longer be allowed in public libraries.
Yeah, so he was on meth. And that, mixed with his already amplified emotions on the matter, that was just not good. That wasn't good for anyone around him, I'd say.
No, I'd say.
Following JFK's assassination, Ruby shut down his greatly in debt nightclub for the night. And I think the weekend, maybe even. Out of respect, he said. But
Okay.
Ruby was shocked and agitated to see that the other nightclub owners, they just didn't do that. They didn't follow suit.
That's
Like they didn't even respect the president.
Rubes is fucking angry at this point.
He's a very
pissed.
strange, like, moral compass that has very distinct rules.
And they don't really make any sense.
Yeah,
They're
he's
present.
just stewing, man. He's just angry.
All right, let's go. Let's see,
go, man.
I don't know what he wants out of this scenario, other than he's like, I want what I
Dude,
want, and
the
I'm
way
gonna get it.
the way it actually plays out is not. You'll see. All right, so he went down to the police station where Oswald was being held, right? And he began shaking people's hands. He was introducing himself. He was handing out pamphlets for his club. He was like, plugging that. And he was claiming to be a deputized member of the press.
Okay.
He's like, I'm just here. They told me to be here. I'm just like here to take notes and all this stuff. He eventually left, but he was absolutely livid at this point. Ruby then proceeded to get absolutely wasted that night.
Let's get wasted.
He got like fucking sloshed.
Woo!
Yeah.
Spring break. He's flashing his titties and shit on camera.
That'd be amazing. Jack Ruby ditties.
The Jack Rubies, dude.
Oh, Jack's Rubies. That'll
There you go.
dude. That'll be our strip club name when we open it.
We have to find the Jack Ruby.
Where is it? Show me everything.
Was that The Simpsons? He's like, oh my god, we have to find the Jack Ruby. He's like, Homer, Jack Ruby's a person. He's like, oh. All right, let's start over.
We found him. All right, so he's pissed off. He's going to the police station. He's shaking hands. Everyone sees him. Everyone knows him. He's Jack Ruby. And he goes home, and he just gets so wasted. When he wakes up on Sunday morning, November 24th, pivotal date, he was violently hungover, as you might expect. And his roommate...
He's got to swallow down his anger.
Yeah, he's got to do that with it. And his roommate, he said that he just kept muttering and like mumbling under his breath about the assassination of JFK and like, just how pissed he was and stuff. These mumblings were broken up by a call, however, from one of Ruby's dancers for one of his clubs, asking for some money that he owed her.
Dynasty?
Dynasty, that would be amazing. If Dynasty made it in here.
Dynasty, dude.
So Ruby, he then went down to the Western Union to wire her the money, which just so happened to be near where Oswald was being transferred that morning to the state penitentiary. All right, so the timestamp on the transaction that Ruby made at the Western Union, it read 11:17 a.m.
Okay.
Right? Ruby then walks half a block down to the Dallas Municipal Building, where 4 minutes after he wired his dancer her money, Ruby did the deed. All right? It was 4 minutes afterward. At 11:21. Oswald was being escorted in the basement of the building. He was being escorted through the basement of the building into an armored car by authorities. And they were at first they were kind of running because there was a lot of press and everything. They were trying to get him through. He was running at a good pace, and then they stopped right by the car to have the door open. So in that pause, it happened, man. The press was present, including live television coverage. Ruby suddenly emerged from the crowd of reporters, pulled his .38 Colt Cobra and shot Oswald in the abdomen. And there's a great photo of this. There's just an excellent photo of this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There is.
The bullet damaged his spleen, his stomach, aorta, kidney, liver, and a ton of other really important things in there. So he was, definitely going to die. It just bounced around, this bullet did.
Yikes. Not good.
Yeah, Ruby, he was immediately subdued, and Oswald was rushed to the same hospital where JFK was pronounced dead, only to die of his wounds about an hour and a half later.
Fair?
Isn't that crazy?
Fair enough.
But Jack Ruby, so he legitimately thought that he would not get in trouble for this. He thought, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to be a hero.
I feel like a lot of people probably felt similar, but it doesn't mean that the law does.
Exactly. The reason nobody did it is because of, the law where it says, no, you can't kill a guy. It's success. You've done the thing to the guy who did that same thing to the guy you liked.
Pretty much.
Okay, what happens now? You fucking get charged.
Yeah, you're going to prison, dude.
Dude, as he was being taken away, he yelled, "I'm Jack Ruby. You all know me."
All right, you're admitting it.
As if that was some sort of, that would help something. All right, so yeah, he didn't think he would get in trouble. He thought he would just be taken to the station, processed, and released that very day. But no. No. That's not how that works. He was sent to trial. Where his lawyer, he wanted to lean on a mental illness sort of, case, an argument.
Oh, he's got one.
Exactly. He was like, let's lean on your family history of mental illness, all that kind of stuff. But Ruby, he refused to go from that angle for whatever reason.
He's like, I did this because everybody in America wanted it.
It's I guess. He did say that he wanted to spare Jackie Kennedy the trial.
That doesn't matter.
She's already gone through a lot, but she may as well finish it, huh, Rubester? Come on.
No. Just no.
Yeah. So he refused the angle to go from a mental illness state. So that being the case, after only about 1 hour of deliberation, the jury came back, found Jack Ruby guilty, and charged him with, murder. And he was sentenced to the chair. You know the chair.
Yeah, the one
you know which chair. Well, Is that what that one does?
If it's botched, that's where you end up.
If I'm in the rain too long, maybe.
Yeah, if something's wrong with it, sure.
Yeah. But yeah, he went to the infamous chair, or he was sentenced to, right? Mm-hmm. So while in his cell awaiting his fate, that's when Ruby's mental state. Oh, that was very sing-songy. It really broke. He was going insane. He went completely insane.
He was losing it.
He told his sister, while in just hysterics, that he was responsible for killing 25 million Jews that were all being boiled in oil underneath the floor of his cell. And it's all because he shot Oswald.
Let me figure this one out. So this guy's talking about
25 million Jews, he thinks, are underneath his jail cell, boiling in oil.
So he is thinking that under the earth there are 4 Holocausts happening simultaneously because of what he did.
4 and some change.
They really should have gone with the mental illness route. I think it would have
Why
benefited
not,
everybody.
you know?
I think everybody would be a lot happier.
Because he shot Oswald, he's like, oh god, they killed 25 million Jews underneath my cell. It's like, no, they're not. He tried to kill himself like multiple times.
Just wait, they'll do it for you for free.
I know. But he tried to kill himself. He tried bashing his head in against the wall. He tried hanging himself. He even tried to like electrocute himself with a light socket, which like he doused himself in water, took out the light bulb, and he was too short to reach the socket.
Oh,
so he was
Ruby.
He was jumping. He couldn't do it.
Picture just a sopping wet man crying, trying to kill himself.
God.
Like, come on,
Jack. So at this point, he had appealed, and he had another trial coming. But while he was in prison, he went to the hospital with pneumonia. And while there, they just found him riddled with cancer. It was just everywhere. But after this, he died of a blood clot of all things.
Really? All right.
Yeah. So, who would have seen that coming with all the things wrong with this guy?
In a weird way, that's a fitting end for Jack Ruby.
It kind of is, but really, Jack Ruby is such a pivotal fucking character in this story because of him, we have no trial for, like, the American people to look back to reference for any of this.
Mm-hmm.
There was no prosecution of fucking Lee Harvey Oswald. We didn't get him to talk. At least we don't have the documents of what he said in his like interviews and that kind of thing. But like the point is, no one got closure.
Yeah.
And like with a bunch of gaps in stories and things that aren't mentioned, especially in the Warren Commission, it's gonna breed a bunch of weird, crazy ideas.
It really is.
And that's what we're gonna go into now.
So I'm gonna spend some time today. I'm not going to go over a ton of different ones. I'm going to go over one that is very interconnected to a lot of different things, and it's very plausible. But this is one that it's not quite common knowledge. I would say it's not like one of the more talked about conspiracies, but it's a very reasonable one to feel. Okay.
Which one is this?
Well, we'll get into it. So I want to start. I'm not even going into this because this is a fucking.
What?
This is
Let's go into this. I'm not even going to touch
this. This is a series in and of itself, but we're going to very, very, very quickly gloss over the Bay of Pigs, okay?
Oh, yeah, we can sum that up in a sentence.
So for the Bay of Pigs, for those of you that are unaware, it took place in 1961, okay? And pretty much what happened was this is when Fidel Castro was really kind of honing in on the power, you know?
Yeah.
And so people that opposed the, Fidel Castro's Cuban Revolution, they went after him, and essentially what was a staged coup, okay? So they go after him. There is quite a lot of people involved. We're talking upwards of, like, the thousands, okay? And they're going to go in and they're going to overthrow Castro, okay? That's the end game. It did not work, obviously.
No, it didn't work. He was, Castro died in power.
Yeah.
Very recently.
Over 2,000 Cuban individuals were killed because of the Bay of Pigs. It was completely botched. Nothing ever changed because of that. And it was just a failure. But what comes to light, and this is not a conspiracy theory, this is a very, very, very true statement, is that the Bay of Pigs was secretly funded and planned by the United States government, specifically the CIA. Okay?
It was mostly the CIA, yeah. And the CIA were trying to strong-arm JFK into participating and backing it.
Which it happened, because there was really no debate, okay?
Yeah.
So the CIA, this is where JFK gets very, very wary of what the CIA is capable of and what they're doing. Okay,
like they're fucking planning foreign invasions on their own.
Yeah,
like
so
they can't do that.
It's definitely not something that Kennedy is okay with, but there's really not a whole lot that he's capable of doing. Okay, So this is when things start to get a little bit muddled because JFK is very against the CIA at this point, right? As we can figure,
He wants to dismantle it.
So JFK has openly admitted that he's not a fan of the CIA. It's kind of common knowledge. It's like, nah, I don't like it. And then Operation Northwoods comes to the table. That's something that we have talked about before. So again,
we have with all the false flags and things that were proposed to JFK.
So again, I'll give you a quick cursory thing. This was a planned, keep in mind, planned. That is the biggest word in that fucking statement.
Planned.
This was a planned attack in order to get the United States' favor to do something a little bit more in the Cold War than just, hoard, okay? So the thought was this. If they could send in drones and planes and drop some bombs and make it look like it was the enemy doing it, everybody would be down with us going into Cuba, right? Everybody would be down.
Yeah, turning the Cold War to a hot one.
Everybody would be down. This came across JFK's table, and he outright denied it. He said no, he would not sign off on it. If it was to happen, it was going to happen without congressional or presidential approval, okay?
Yeah.
Needless to say, Operation Northwoods did not actually ever occur because of this statement. Now, this is when it gets really bad, because at this point, now we're getting into 63. JFK is already talking about his next run. He's going to win. There's no competition for anybody against JFK. Like, he is the lover boy, right?
Yeah.
No
more
one
ways than one,
him.
yeah.
But he gets a little too cocky. He's talking about one of his platforms for the next election would be the complete dismantling of the CIA and stripping them of their power and moving that into different branches that are a little bit more regulated and less private. Okay?
The current CIA was not a fan of that.
Obviously
not at all.
So, what we understand is from here on out is when... Well, no, actually, I got a couple a little bit more facts that I'll pepper in. Everything up to this point is factual information. There's no denying it. It is true, whether you agree or disagree.
Yeah, just say, allegedly, if it's not 100%.
Okay,
real.
Fair. So, now we're going to move into LBJ. All right? LBJ. What was going on in the 60s, right?
Wait a minute. You know what I just realized?
Huh.
Is my dad used to call me LBJ as a kid. But
Little Big Jake?
Little Boy Jake.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like, I never even put that together, this entire series that we've been doing.
Hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? You know?
Yeah, my dad would ask me that too.
So anyways, LBJ, vice president to JFK, funny enough, it's the only time in history that we've had two successful three initial people. Like, that's just what they were known as, you know?
Yeah, it just worked back then, you know?
JFK, LBJ. That is the platform.
It was a 60s thing.
But what is going on in the 60s right now? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Well, it's 6 years before the pivotal Summer of Love.
Jake, what's happening? What is getting people very concerned right now at this time?
Is it the Vietnam?
It is Vietnam.
Yeah.
Good old Nam. Good old Vietnam. Now, JFK is a proponent of pulling us out of Vietnam and not getting involved. The Gulf of Tonkin incident has occurred. Things are going down. JFK, well, at this point it hasn't occurred. But had it occurred, JFK would be like, no, we're backing out. This is not our business, okay?
That's fine.
So,
just come home.
What we're dealing with is follow the money, okay? This, again, is true.
Wait, that is the most conspiracy thing I've ever heard, is follow the money.
Well, think of it this way. He's got two enemies right now. Well, no, he's got one, and I'm going to give you the second enemy. LBJ's wife, LBJ, funny enough, Lady Bird Johnson.
Fuck that.
LBJ and LBJ, female. Lady Bird is one of the main stockholders of a company that owns something called Bell Helicopters.
Oh,
right?
Look at that. I see those a lot in war movies.
Bell Helicopters. One of their main stockholders is LBJ's wife. Now, JFK's already said that he does not want to get involved in foreign affairs. He wants to keep his nose out of it. The Bay of Pigs left a horrible, horrible fucking taste in his mouth. He's not interested. He's done. He's out. Okay?
You know what else during this time is he and the whatever dude was in charge of Russia at the time. I forgot his name, but they were like communicating via papers.
Yes,
they were. Like in like code in like local papers or something. I believe, or like they were. Someone was putting messages within papers, and then they would be delivered to them.
Yeah,
and it was all like super friendly. They were just like, "How can we make this work?"
Yeah, pretty much foreign affairs were going very good.
Yeah, and it was point. Like passing notes in class.
Things were not very tense. Yeah, obviously Vietnam was going on. The Cuban Revolution was kind of occurring down south. But for the most part, America didn't have a hand in a lot of issues right now. Okay?
Yeah.
So, now we talk about post-death. JFK's dead. LBJ gets into office. One of the earliest things that LBJ does is ramp up the war. We start sending out more troops, more supplies, everything.
This is great for the economy. That was another thing JFK was doing. He was like barring a lot of manufacturing deals of like huge companies.
Yeah. So, if you haven't connected the dots already, Bell Helicopters was the supplier for all of the helicopters that were happening or given to the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, fortunate son.
So the stocks of Bell Helicopters went through the fucking roof. They had a government contract now. They were the sole proprietor of helicopters in Vietnam. They were doing everything right. And who benefited? The new president and his wife.
LBJ and his wife, LBJ.
So, but let's get a little bit deeper than that, okay? This is, again, who was working for the CIA at the time of the JFK assassination?
Was that Eisenhower?
No, it was George Bush.
Oh.
Senior.
Eisenhower's in there somewhere.
JBS. He was...
JBS.
GBS, sorry. That's
GBS.
GBS.
Let's just start referring to everyone as just acronyms.
GBS. He was working in the CIA. Now, after the JFK assassination, within a very, very, very short amount of time, he was promoted to the head of operations of the CIA. Okay?
That's good for him.
It is. It's good. It's a fat little promotion. He went up. Now, during his time in the CIA, this again, not allegedly, keep that in mind, this is not alleged, this is factual. GBS was buddy-buddy with...
I'm already getting confused, but I know that's George Bush.
GBS, he was getting buddy-buddy with some Saudi Arabians, all right? He didn't have an issue with the Saudis. He was all right with them. He kind of opened up some different talks. He was dealing with Saudi Arabian things. GBS had a nice relationship going with the Saudis, okay?
Yeah. Flash forward like 40 years. Jesus.
Exactly. We're going to go past JFK now. This gets into a little bit of a larger conspiracy, but JFK still plays a role. Don't worry. GBS becomes president, all right?
Yes, he does.
He becomes president.
Has a son. Loves cocaine and baseball.
He is trying his fucking hardest to get us involved in a war, all right? He is doing everything in his power to get us going to a fight, all right?
Yeah. He's like Jack Ruby on the streets as a teen.
He fails. His shit crumbles. His marketability goes to shit. And Bill Clinton steps up, all right? Bill Clinton coming in.
Smooth, jazzy, come on the dress man.
Sucking on clits, all right? Bill sucking on clittons.
He loves cigars.
He's coming into the office.
Oh, he's coming.
What happens after this? All right? What happens? GBS gets both of his kids jobs in government.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
And then one of them becomes the president. And eventually, once one of his sons becomes the president, what do? We go to war with Iraq, who had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11, because we all know that they were fucking Afghanistan. That's where they were from.
No, it was mostly Saudi Arabians, right?
Well, some Saudis,
and then some
some
from Yemen.
But who is Saudi Arabia's biggest enemy? Iraq.
Iraq and Saddam.
So we connect all these dots. The conspiracy of JFK. I'm not saying that George Bush had something to do with the death, but because of the death of George Bush, or of JFK, I'm sorry. Because of the death of JFK, the CIA was never really questioned again, and they were allowed to do what needed to be done, therefore making their highballer players a lot of money in the process.
Yeah, money's good.
Now, this goes back to LBJ. LBJ has a reason to want JFK dead, does he not? His wife stands to make millions, if not more, in fucking money and stocks.
And LBJ's married to LBJ, so LBJ will become rich from LBJ.
Exactly.
Shared finances.
So, that is a conspiracy in and of itself. Obviously, there's a little bit more... There's more thoughts on the LBJ expansion, but that's one of the ones that doesn't get enough credit. The fact that Lady Bird, also Hank Hill's dog's name, stands to make a lot of money from JFK getting out of the picture.
You remember the episode where Lady Bird the dog is like a racist dog?
Yeah, yeah, I remember that one. It was like barking at the plumber or some shit. Yeah. But so now we got two enemies of JFK, right?
Yeah.
That
of
would be
many.
The CIA as well as LBJ, okay? Now, the CIA one stands a little bit taller once we get into Robert Kennedy, all right? Because Bobby was very, very similar to JFK. He was a man of the people. He was very loved and respected. And he felt very, very similar to JFK on the stance of the CIA. And we all know how Bobby's story ends with him getting fucking assassinated too.
Yeah, he died.
So, now I want you to keep in mind, some of these a little bit more intricate ones, that will be in the finale next week. But I do have one more that is probably the bigger conspiracy as far as JFK goes.
Okay.
And that would be organized crime or the mafia.
The mafia. Yeah, I know. Go ahead. I'll pepper some things in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep the mafia one short because I already know. Now, for total transparency, next week's episode is gonna get real intricate and heavy. I have found two very, very important things that I'm going to pretty much just absorb myself in over the next 6 to 7 days. One of them is a 4-hour documentary. One that I had seen before, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
It was a while ago.
And the other one
pre-podcast, I think,
is an 87-page document by an individual that worked with the Warren Commission but was not on the Warren Commission and has a little bit of a different perspective than the Warren Commission. All right?
That makes sense, yeah.
So instead of, I don't want to sit here and speculate on things. I'm going to get into some very weirdly specific details next week.
Yeah.
But this week we're going to kind of gloss over the mob. So for those of you that didn't know this, the Kennedy family comes from a long line of rich motherfuckers.
Yeah, they're a very rich Irish Catholic family.
So pre-Great Depression, the Kennedy family they're well off. They're not, the most rich and powerful family, but they're well off. And it's pretty well known that the Kennedys, JFK's father, was tipped off about what was going to happen with the Great Depression, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Tipped off. So what he did, took all of his money out of the bank, liquidated all of his assets right before the Great Depression, all right? So he's got all of his money. Then the Great Depression hits. Shit plummets. Everything is in the shitter. People have nothing. Businesses are going under. Real estate is at an all-time low. Kennedy sweeps in, buys it all up, takes everything he can get. He's got the money. Everything is fucking a tenth of the price now. And that leads to the Kennedys being a very, very rich family.
Yeah. No, he did well.
Now, it's pretty much well known, or at least well believed, I should say, because there's no full-on proof, but it's very well believed that the Kennedys were closely associated with the organized crime families of New York. Okay?
That makes sense, yeah.
Now, we're talking about real mafia shit, not The Godfather, Not these fucking movies, not Scarface. We're talking legitimate organized crime. And there is reason to suspect that they were the ones that were able to complete the task. Now, it is something that is often speculated, and if I'm not mistaken, I'll have more info on this next week, but if I'm not mistaken, it's all but proven true that Marilyn Monroe and JFK had a thing going.
Yeah, that was a fact. Yeah.
Well, no, not that, but Marilyn Monroe had connections to the mafia as well.
Oh, yeah?
And it was believed that she was the go-to person. She was the middleman. So if the mafia needed to get any information to Kennedy, or vice versa, she was the perfect portal to make that happen. She'd come visit him, suck his dick, move on.
Yeah, referring to her as a portal is pretty funny.
Well, fair point.
Yeah, but
Any messages that needed to be shared between the organized crime families and the Kennedy family could be done through the surrogate of Marilyn Monroe.
it was also done, I think, through Frank Sinatra. But,
Yes.
But JFK became privy to that and ended their friendship.
Yeah, it was something that he really couldn't be a part of because it was too open. You know what I mean? It was too out in the open. There's nothing you could really do about that.
No, it's true. You see JFK and any of these people together, you're just like, I gotta take a picture of that.
Yeah, that's true. So there's a reason that the mafia is what it is today, and that's something that we call, being remembered. Am I right? They're very well known. Everybody knows who they are.
Yeah.
But what people don't often realize is that the tactics that are used currently and up until that point, even in the 60s, the tactics used by the CIA are straight out of the organized crime handbook. They use the same tactics when it comes to interrogation, information getting, money laundering, not jobs, like business proposals, things like that.
Yeah, they were heavily. They had ties.
They're straight up out of the fucking book of the mafia, okay? And it's interesting because then there's an even deeper connection between the New York mob family, specifically the boss Joseph Bonanno, right?
Bonanno?
Bonanno?
Who are you, fucking minion?
Bonanno, that's fucking name.
Bonanno?
Bonanno. I couldn't fucking pronunciate it.
What's his first name?
Bill. Well, no, that's his son. Joseph is the man. Joe Bonanno. All right?
All right, yeah.
So he actually talked about this very openly, that the mafia, several different mafia families actually, had very, very long-standing ties with anti-Castro Cubans, all right?
All right.
So this kind of connects them to the CIA further, and some to to JFK as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also believed that JFK got elected because of essentially the endorsement of the mafia. Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, if you watch shows, you're gonna understand that the mafia has sway. And we're talking New York and Chicago, two of the larger cities in the country. And they're essentially mob-run. I mean, things that go through those cities are passed by the mafia.
Pretty much, especially back then, but like every union is heavily involved and run by the mafia.
And JFK got the union backing in both of these cities. So it leads a lot of people to think that the mafia had some sort of ties to getting him elected.
And he kind of spit in their face in a way.
He very much did, because he was going to work on dismantling organized crime.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw the statistic that convictions, not even like bringing them in for the trial, convictions of people in like crime families went up 800%.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking
JFK.
That's not a smack on the fucking dick. Jesus Christ.
JFK and Bobby were very anti-mafia. So not only did they possibly have some connections to the mafia, but they also were definitely not their friends.
They were actively trying to get rid of them.
So this leads us to believe that possibly the mafia is responsible, because we know that he was very, very strict, and had he won re-election, everybody knows that U.S. presidents, if you're planning a 2-term run, term number 1 is going to be a lot calmer than term 2. Because once you get into that second term, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You don't have to worry about re-election.
Look at Trump, too.
Fair enough. He was crazy.
And that wasn't even 2 terms. That was just like the second half of his only term.
But it's very reasonable to believe that the mafia, if this is true, was afraid because in his first term, it had been made very clear that it was no longer going to be accepted or looked the other way. It was going to be cracked down on. People were going to take this shit very seriously. So, the mafia is a very, very likely candidate for wanting JFK dead.
So he's got all of organized crime. He's got most Cubans. He's got the CIA and his own vice president.
Yeah,
as possible enemies.
We're talking 4 enemies here, and these are just 4 that we're mentioning. Okay, these are just 4 that we are bringing up.
And 3 of them are large populations of folks.
Yes, and now I will admit, to me personally, this is 100% my opinion. I feel like the Cuban thing isn't what got him killed. I think that there were a lot of Cubans that...
They may have been like conduits from the other enemies to,
Exactly. They, I think, are a very, very good excuse. Because there's a lot of Cubans that felt some kind of way about JFK.
Yeah, all those people that died in the Bay of Pigs, they all had families, so...
Yeah.
2,000, what do you want to say? Probably at least like 20,000 people were probably really pissed at him.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I think they are a very good scapegoat for the other 3 more likely candidates. Now, what needs to be understood here is that the LBJ connection, I think that's another one that could, I'm not saying throw it out. Throw it out as in it's not true.
Don't throw it out. There is one little thing I want to mention. When he was being sworn in on Air Force One, LBJ that is.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
As he was being sworn in, he turned to the congressman and gave him a little wink.
Okay.
And congressman, he winked back.
Ooh.
A knowing wink and a smirk. And meanwhile, Jackie's just got brains in her hair.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So, LBJ, and again, like I'm saying, I'm not saying get rid of him as a suspect. But on this scale, he's a little bit lower on my list of truly suspicious characters, only because the motive that we're aware of, the 2 motives we have are the Bell helicopter stock and him becoming president. Okay?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Both of those things by themselves are very large, but comparative to the other 2, his motive is a little bit less, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
It is true. And honestly, like on the mob side of it, like they kind of figured that LBJ would back off should JFK be, out of the picture.
Yeah, taken care of, if you will.
And they were right. Out of spite, LBJ, he just like got rid of most of the things that he put into motion.
Yeah, pretty much. So this begs the question. Now, obviously, this is one that I'm really going to dig into next week. Everything that was mentioned today, minus the LBJ one, we're going to dig a little bit deeper in part 3. But
more names to make into acronyms for you.
Yeah, no, exactly. But one more thing is the multiple shooter incident. Okay, there's the idea that there were multiple different shooters. Possibly one on the grassy knoll, okay?
Yeah, possibly. Other ones, there's a ton of just like... Because police were on the scene as it happened, so they just started getting like eyewitness testimonies. Mm-hmm. And there's so many of them.
Oh,
dude, the Warren Commission went through 20,000 pages of just information on that day.
Oh, yeah.
It's
brutal.
insane.
But the reason I'm not going to bring up the grassy knoll in depth today is because, at least for this episode, we're not so concerned as to who pulled the trigger. We're more concerned as the bigger picture, the scope of why that trigger was pulled, okay?
Yeah.
So
it was an umbrella gun.
Exactly. So these will all be touched on next week in the Part 3 episode, but I wanted to bring it up just so you guys, just so you know we're not forgetting the big one.
We're going to prime you for next week.
But really, the interesting thing is that the Mafia and the CIA, as well as LBJ, all have a very, very, very valid reason to want JFK gone.
And the Cubans. Don't forget the Cubans.
And it's not out of the question that they worked together to make sure that it happened. As we talked about, the CIA, again, we'll get more information, the CIA and the Mafia are enemies on paper, but they both can utilize each other in a certain way to get what they want, okay?
They were definitely coexisting.
Yeah, they're working together. They're not hating each other fully. So, the idea that these two could be together really opens the door to a huge idea of why JFK, why him. And I think, at least where we're at today with this information and where I'm going to end my stuff today, is the thought that JFK was probably one of the most, if not the most, beloved presidents across the aisle. There's people that didn't like him.
By
obviously.
the American people, but one step removed from the American people, he probably had the most enemies of any president.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. As far as politics go, he was an enemy of a lot. But as far as just general consensus of people enjoying him or liking him, he was probably one of the higher people on that list.
Yeah.
He just kind of had it all. He was smart. He was sweet. He was a good old Catholic boy.
He was a war hero.
Yeah, he was a war hero. He comes from good stock. His wife was a good first lady. They were all around. They were really reaching a lot of people, okay?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that the fact of him being assassinated, looking back on it, isn't that shocking. Because when somebody is that liked and trusted, it's not a good fit for a lot of people, okay?
Yeah.
There's
a lot of the people
discomfort.
a lot of people that are willing to do that. Yeah, I agree.
But sadly, I'm not sad about it. You guys might be sad. That is where I'm going to leave it for this week.
Well, yeah, we got to go play poker and eat chicken dip.
Well, that's true too. But I want you guys to know that next week, prepare yourselves for possibly a little bit longer of an episode.
Yeah, we're probably just going to jabber on.
And for if there's ever been an episode where you're going to need a notepad if you want to follow along, it will be next week. I promise you that. It's going to get very muddled, to say the very least.
It's going to be hairy.
But with that, I love you guys very much.
Yeah,
and
I love
appreciate
you as well.
listening to us today.
It's true, me as well.
And we'll be back next week with a hot new episode for you.
That is true, and it's true because we are starting a cult. That's great. I'm Jake, and you can follow us on all the stuff, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There's also a TikTok, wasac_pod. And there's an email, startacult@gmail.com. Send us whenever you want. And Patreon down below. We're on YouTube. You can subscribe and all that stuff, but mostly the Patreon down below. You can get extra content twice a month. And, I'm pretty sure Mitch is here. I heard him whispering sweet nothings through the door. So I'm going to go get him for bananas.
I think he heard you. All I heard was Mitch out there like, oh, no.
Mitch.
Hey,
I'm going to
Mitch.
try to call him with my voice. Mitch, we need you for bananas.
It's your time. He's coming. I hear the dog. He's bringing the dog with him. He's in motion.
You're on. It's showtime.
Motion's happening.
Hey.
He's here. Hello.
What's up, Navi?
It's your time to shine, Mitch.
All right, so yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We love you. Thank you.